We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. Uh-oh, thrift diving.
Hey, what's up? It's Serena Appiah from thriftdiving.com, which is a do-it-yourself blog, YouTube channel, and podcast that helps you decorate, improve, and maintain your home with paint, power tools, and thrift stores without sacrificing your budget, the environment, or style. Welcome to episode 114 of the Thrift Diving podcast. And today we're going to jump right into part 2 of the Getting to Know Serena episode. Remember last week for part 1, my friend, fellow thrift diving listener, Laura Rudder, she interviewed me because, well, she's my friend, but I also met her as part of this podcast, and she has a background in interviewing people. And she said, Serena, you throw all these little nuggets of information about yourself in various episodes, but we don't have just one episode where we get to know you. And I thought, all right, if you want to interview me, let's do it. And so part 1, you can find that episode 113. I'll leave the link down in the show notes. But in this episode, we're going to continue learning more about how I lost my job. What job was that? What did I actually do before I started thrift diving? But Laura was asking me some really poignant questions about my biggest fears and what's on my bucket list, things I've always wanted to do. And we talk a little bit about the Golden Girls too. But it's really interesting when someone is asking you these questions and they're things that you've thought about, and maybe you think about them all the time, but someone actually asking you and then you're having to verbalize them out loud, you really learn something about yourself, things that you didn't realize were as important as they were. And you'll see in just a moment what 2 of my biggest fears are, but we talk a little bit about money. Money is one of my fears. And it's really interesting that I mentioned that money is one of my fears, because here at Thrift Diving, it's about living I don't want to say a totally frugal lifestyle, because I don't believe everything should have to be cheap and frugal. I just don't like to pay a lot of money for my home, for my decorations. I like to do things myself. But I have a lot of fear surrounding money and not having enough. And so we go into that a little bit more, but you're going to get to hear it all in today's episode. Be sure to come back again, because Laura is going to interview me again, possibly for the next episode, where we're going to dig more into thrift diving. How did thrift diving even start? What was my first project? How did I learn to use power tools and do all of these things that you see on my blog, thriftdiving.com, or on my YouTube channel? How did I learn how to do this? So she and I are going to dig into that in another upcoming episode. So stick around for that. But right now, let's jump into the part where Laura and I had left off, where I was telling her about my previous job. The one that I got fired from. I'm going to tell you more about what I used to do, and we're going to jump into it right now. That was an interesting job because it was all about supporting colleges and universities, the program that I worked on, supporting colleges and universities in helping to bring veterans back onto college campuses. Because sometimes when they were coming back, they were, they weren't 18, 19 years old. These might have been 26, 27-year-old veterans who are just getting back from combat. So how do you integrate a military personnel or veteran into a program on your campus? So my job was actually running that program and getting schools on board, and then scheduling all of the psychologists to actually go to those universities and do the presentation. But there was my supervisor. Oh, we just butted heads like, and so it got to the point where I got written up.
Oh, wow.
I got written up. I remember it was like November. It was November of, what year was that? When did I lose my job? Oh, 2016. I think it was 2016. But it was the November prior to that. And I knew it was going to come. I knew she was just following procedures. So the funny thing is that I had already, I'm not that kind of person who brings house plants to the office and pictures of the kids.
Yes.
My thing was if I ever need to just bounce, I need to just bounce. I need nothing at my office.
Gotcha.
And so I had already taken home any papers that I may have wanted to keep.
Yeah.
So when finally it happened, it got to the point where the woman, she said, "Hey, HR is over here." And I knew what that meant. So after they fired me, she escorted me back to my office and she's like, "What, do you need a box?" Laura, I had one box of tea in my desk. That's it.
That was it?
I grabbed my purse. I was ready to go for a long period of time. And this was right at the time when I decided that I really want to go full-time with thrift diving. So this was like January. I got fired like February 8th of, maybe it was 2015. There we go. 2015. So that year, my middle son was going to start kindergarten, but I just needed to wait until I could get him in school because I didn't want to have two in daycare. I couldn't afford that. But I'd already looked into, okay, if I get fired, would I be able to get unemployment? So I'd already knew that I would be able to do that. So when I got fired, I went home and I was like, yes, I'm out of there. Oh, I'm out of there. So I said to my husband, I said, "Give me 3 months. Let me see if I can do this thrift diving thing." He said, "No, I need you to start working." I said, "No, give me 3 months." He did not want me to do thrift diving at all. Just, you need to go get a W-2 job.
Your husband and my husband just sound so much
alike. I'm telling you, they may be brothers. They may need to.
They could be brothers.
Are you sure you're not married to an African?
I'm telling you, seriously. Oh, they could be brothers. Yeah.
Yes. So he was not on board. He's like, "No, you need to go get a job." I said, "Give me 3 months." And so I was looking for a job because I had unemployment. But it got to the point where I started reporting income. And I had gotten like a really big Ryobi Home Depot event deal, and they had cut me a check for like $4,000. So I had to report that. And when I had to report that, that was the moment that I called them and said, "Yeah, I think I'm okay. I'm done with unemployment. I'm going to work for myself." And I haven't gone back since. And I'm thankful that my income has consistently gone up since that time. So it all kind of worked out for me. But really, I've always been a creative person. Even here's one, I don't know if I told you this before, Laura, but years before I could even like write cursive, I used to sit underneath my window and I had a lined notebook, and I would just on the line, very neatly, I would just do these little scribbles. I was writing before I even knew that I was writing. I knew that writing was inside of me. And what's really interesting, I went to a high school reunion one year, and this girl that I was friends with in maybe like 5th, 6th grade, somewhere like middle school, we were in the bathroom stalls, and I was in one, she was in the other. She's like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I'm thinking, man, this is kind of weird. We're going to the bathroom. Why is she asking me this? So I told her what I was doing at the time. She's like, "Oh, I always thought you'd be a writer." I'm like, "What? Really?" So she saw it in me, and I didn't see it in myself until later. But I've always kept journals, like even from, middle school. I started keeping a journal. I was inspired by, Elizabeth and Jessica Wakefield in those Sweet Valley Twin books, and I started writing. and journaling, and I think that's what blogging has been for me. I've been documenting how I've been a mom and how I've been transforming this house and my thoughts and feelings. And, it's a journal. It's a documentation of really the last probably 20, 30 years of my life.
And you're very good at writing too. You're very good at what you put out on social media. So then there's another thing I'm going to encourage you too on that one for maybe writing a book, then putting all of this down in for a book. I'm going to encourage you on that one. I'm going to put a teaser out here too for the audience right now, because we are going to be doing 2 parts. I'm interviewing Serena right now about her actual personal life, so you guys get to know her a little bit more. We are going to do another episode then on Serena. I'm going to interview her about then thrift diving. And so I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions that I want to know. I don't even know the answers to a lot of these things. So that's a teaser to you guys. Just stay tuned for that later on. And if this interview is so long, you might have Serena put it in 2 different.
I know, right?
So I'm just teasing you folks that stay with us. This may have to be 2 shows as far as this one today. And then I definitely will be interviewing Serena then for another show, strictly talking about thrift diving, how the name came to be, how her song came to be, who's singing it, how her first flip was, how she first got her first idea. I've got a lot of questions I'm going to be asking Serena. So this is a teaser to stay tuned for later on. You don't want to miss that one either. So, all right, getting back to this personal one then.
Yes.
I want to ask you questions about, because thank you for telling us all that too, about how you got there. But then I'm leaving it off right here about the thrift diving. We're stopping because that's another episode. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, what's your greatest fear?
I've got 2. I think I've got 2 fears. I think the first fear is one that most people probably can identify with. The fear of something happening to the people you love. That's like my number one fear, is something happening. And you know that it's coming, because that's life.
Everybody
right?
dies, yes.
Everybody dies, right? And I think that's my number one fear, something happening to the people I love. But I think my other fear is that I will not be able to financially support myself. Like, I have a fear of being broke.
That's interesting.
Being broke. And I think I really think it's tied to like the way that I grew up. I mean,
probably so. Yeah.
I didn't feel that we were without. I think my mom did a really good job. You know what? In fact, our house, maybe that's where I got my love of thrift stores, because everything in our house came from a thrift store. I didn't really know it at the time, but I had always loved thrift stores. The things that my mom taught me about money, that was something that she was never good with. She got better with it later. You know, she's good about budgeting, and what she had done in her career, she was actually teaching other people how to budget and how to make use of what you have. And she's very good with that. But I remember one memory where she had gotten, it was like a $500 refund check. And I was maybe in 5th or 6th grade. And I remember her saying, oh, got this money, we're going shopping. And that just kind of stuck with me. So my fear is that there won't be enough, like right now, I feel like I'm doing well with thrift diving. It's been a lot more profitable than I ever thought it could ever have been. I would not have even, but I always feel like, okay, at some point this is going to dry up, right? Like, when is that well going to dry up?
Yes.
And there's things that change. There's changes in ad revenue, your page numbers go down for whatever reason. There's times when your ad revenue is really good, and then certain parts of the year it's really bad. And so those are always worrisome, that I'll have to go back to bootstrapping it the way I did when we first moved in.
Yes.
That's not a pleasant time. Just thinking, for me, and I've told somebody this before, and I do believe this, for me, that feeling of success is being able to go to the grocery store and buy what you want. Now, should we just buy what we want? Not necessarily, because we're doing right now. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but back in January, we did a 30-day DIY money makeover challenge. Yes. It was eye-opening. And I started looking at my finances, and I'm like, I spent how much? What?
Yes. On this?
Yes. And so right now we're in the midst of another round of that challenge. We extended it to 6 weeks. And when I look at what I've wasted, I thought, man, I could have done so much more. Like, yes, I was putting money away, but maybe I could have put more money away. Maybe I could have had even more money for a down payment on an investment property. And the fear is that I will want to once again have to go into the grocery store and say, oh man, I can't afford that. Or, here's this $2,500 unexpected thing. I guess I'll have to put it on a credit card and pay $25. Like, that's my fear, is that I'm going to have, that I will get to a point one day where I will have to go back to living like that. And if I live like that, if I live like that now, I would much rather it be because I want to and not because I have to. And I'm afraid I'll get to that point where I'll have to.
And I'm going to interject in there too, because I am a bargain hunter major time. Do I have to do all these things? No. But somehow that is just in me, that even though I can, like you said, spend the money on, the store, go to the store. And if I do there, I immediately head it to the 70% off rack, 50%. I didn't even go to the regular clothes. or it's like you said, to Goodwill or any of those places like that, I love to hunt for a bargain. And my husband has always said, I don't care if you're a millionaire, you're probably still going to go to that 70% off rack or the Goodwill to find the whatever's the color for the week and look for the tags that are still on there that came from the store. He says that to me all the time. I don't care what it is, you're probably still going to be doing that. So, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, is there?
No, I don't think there's definitely nothing wrong with that. And I think it's, for some people, it's a necessity. For some people, it's a joy. For some people, it's a joy and a necessity.
Yes.
But I think back to those early days when we moved in, and I know we'll talk about this in the next episode when we really dig into thrift diving, but
I would say we're touching a little bit on here. I thought,
we're touching on it.
Yeah, we should not go this far, but yeah.
But I remember that feeling of stress when we moved in here. It was real. I remember one day we were taking a walk as a family, and it should have been a happy time. Like, we're just kind of walking around the neighborhood. And I just remember, like, gosh, this feeling in my stomach. I'm just worried. Like, what if something breaks? What if something happens? I don't know how to pay for it. And, I have, over the years, have been able to save enough money or invest enough money so that if something breaks, if you have, let's say you need to get a new roof for $10,000 or $15,000, yeah, it's going to suck taking that money from somewhere, but I have it to take from somewhere. And I think my fear is that maybe one day, what if I don't have that? What if I don't have that $15,000 to put on for this? And, I think also too, part of it is, I mentioned before, my mom is 68. She didn't save for retirement. She had a little bit of a retirement fund, maybe about $8,000. But when my grandmother needed care before she went into a nursing home, my mom and sister were living together. They brought my grandmother to live with them, and my mom had quit her job. And so they had to live off of that $8,000. So my mom literally has nothing.
Nothing.
She has nothing. And so my sister helps her here and there with some things. I help my mom, like I just went to see her just recently. And I mentioned in the last podcast, she had a surgery. She's doing well. And at that time when I visited her, I just, here's a few hundreds. Here, take this, live off of this if you need to. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that I can do that. But it also makes me afraid. What if I'm in that situation where I have to depend on my kids, or I have to watch every dollar, or I have to get food assistance? I don't want to be in that situation. Yeah. So I think that's probably my other biggest fear. So, and the question is like, how do you, just because it's a fear doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but maybe it means there's some things that you have to do now to make sure that you don't end up there.
Yes. Okay. On to the next one then. Give me your top 5 bucket list. We'll go from the negative to the positive. How's that?
Ooh, my bucket list.
Look, you don't have a bucket list?
Well, I mean, some things I may not be able to verbalize to everybody. Okay,
well then don't do that. Okay. Tell us, just say the top 5, this one I can't verbalize, but number 4 is.
Okay. I think one of the things I really want to do is I really want an investment property. I want to buy a distressed property that I can rehab, that's completely paid off, doesn't have any, there's nothing that would stress me that, like, if I have to take off for a month because I can't focus on it, well, that's okay. Like, I don't want a deadline associated with it. I just want to leisurely be able to improve it. I think that's probably my biggest one.
You have mentioned that in different podcasts in the past too. So
yes, I do want to do that. Now it's just a little crazy with interest rates and stuff.
Oh yes. Prices.
Yeah. Woo! Prices alone, right? But now that the rates have gone up, I'm like, well, I guess I could have done it a couple of years ago. Probably should have done it.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest one. I think another one that I really want is I really want to live in a new house. I really do. I want to live in a new house. I was just saying this, I think recently, to maybe like my kids, my house, the house that everybody sees on Thrift Diving, it's an older house. I say we've, but mostly me, I've done a lot of stuff to upgrade the house. but it still just feels like an old house. Like
Yes.
I want something that's more modern, maybe something that has a lot more sunlight. That's why I love my shed, because it's like it's new, it's fresh.
Yes.
I can decide how many skylights I wanted, and I can customize it. So I think I would want a new house, and I would probably want to help like design and have some sort of input. I mean, heck, come to the building site. Let me build something today.
So then that's the question. I think HGTV has ruined many of us, quite honestly. But is this a home you would build yourself, design and build yourself, or a spec home?
You know what? I think it probably could be either one.
Okay.
I think it could be either one. I think it would be fun to actually have it be something that I could design from scratch. But yeah, to just have all the features that I'm looking for, mainly just sunlight. I need sunlight. I need that, because like sunlight just makes me so happy to be in a place. Like that's why my she shed makes me so happy when I come in, because it's just so light and bright and airy. And you know, when you're in a house, my house has improved a lot over the years. It used to be a lot darker because of the trees and, you know, surrounding it, but it's improved over the years. But it still just feels like an old house.
Well, 1970s, I get you, because we live, you and I have so many things in common. I live in the same thing too. Troy, I live in 1970s. You would have to leave your she shed if you did that, and maybe then build a new one. Okay, that's cool. That's awesome.
I know. I think like somebody would be enjoying this, but sometimes it's like it's overwhelming. Sometimes the things that have to get done around this house, even just dealing with like the weeds in the yard. I mean, I think with any place that you live, you're gonna experience those. But you know, it would be nice if we just had a nice deck with like nice patio furniture. I don't care if it came from the thrift store, but just something clean where we could just sit out and just relax, and it just looks nice, and it's just low maintenance. I feel like there's just so much to maintain in this house that it just becomes overwhelming sometimes. And, you know, that's why in the past, when we've done our, 90 days to neat challenge, and that's been really cool, because the idea is that, okay, it's overwhelming to focus on so many parts of your house. This week, we're going to focus on the kitchen. Next week, we're going to focus on the dining room. And then you can start breaking it down into little chunks. But just, you know, walking in the house this morning, walking around, I'm like, there's dirt everywhere, and I've got to vacuum the floor, and I got to put these things, and it just becomes overwhelming. That's
with every house, and it doesn't matter. So that can be bucket list. I love it. But what you're saying is every house, even you can build your forever home that's just one level for when you get older. Yes. You know, because someday you're probably going to be saying, I do not want these stairs. So that's another thing. All right.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Yeah.
Next bucket list. Do you have another one or two to give us?
I've always wanted to become fluent in Spanish.
Oh,
I've always wanted to become fluent. I've loved Spanish since I was in like 5th grade. I remember there was a girl from Nicaragua. She was she was a new student to the school. And I remember just asking her, teach me Spanish. You know, that's back before we had Google. You couldn't really find what meant what. And I would ask her to teach me how to say all these things in Spanish. Like, I love the language. And that's why back when I was in my junior year at University of Maryland, I didn't feel comfortable going out of the country, but I said, I can go to Miami and do a semester. The only thing is because I didn't feel comfortable completely speaking it. So the only thing I could say is like, you know, el autobús es 71. Like, did bus 71 come? You know, like, is bus 71, because I always felt, you know, speaking it around people who were native speakers, because I wasn't fluent, it always made me close up, and I would never speak it. But I absolutely love Spanish. I studied it in school. I studied it in college, but until you need to speak it like on a regular basis, you know, you can't become fluent. So I've never become fluent, but you know, I can look at something and hear something and know what it means, but being able to verbalize it back, I can't quite do that. So I've always wanted to become fluent, and I've always wanted to hang glide too.
Oh,
yes. And I was this close to actually going, and before I had kids, and then I just kind of chickened out and didn't do it. And now I have kids, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do that with that.
Would you ever want to bungee jump?
No, don't want to bungee jump. I have no desire to bungee jump.
No. but hang
No.
gliding you would. Okay.
Yeah, the idea of gliding and just being able to see the entire world.
Yes.
I love
I
that.
would love that, except for, okay, landing. I don't want to go thud and break a leg, That's the tricky part right there.
The thing is if you don't know how to hang glide, you can do it tandem. You would do it tandem. So you would have an experienced person and you'd be attached to them.
That's true. And I'd keep my legs up and they could be the legs in on the landing.
Exactly. And then
Okay.
I don't know if I have number 5. I don't know.
Okay. That's the one you don't want to tell us, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's my
the one you can't tell me. Okay, moving on. I want to ask, tent camping versus hotel and air conditioning.
You said camping versus hotel?
Tent camping versus hotel.
It's been a long time since I've done any kind of camping. So probably hotel, but I will tell you, when I was in 10th grade, there was this woman, she was the art teacher, Miss Hoop. I'm actually Facebook friends with her. She had this Explore Post 17 club, and it was like one of the most fun times of my teen years. We did we would do day trips, we would hike. And I'll tell you, this was the thing that, this just got me. We were supposed to, this was the summer of my 10th grade year. After I finished 10th grade, we were supposed to do a 1-week trip to the Adirondacks. And this is when I had met my first boyfriend, my high school boyfriend, right? So he was my first love. And soon after I met him, he was about to go to college, but I wanted him to come and see me before he left for college. So I kept trying to get him to come and see me. Like, why aren't you coming to see me? This is like first love. So you're just like,
Yes.
And so I ended up passing up the opportunity to go on this trip because I was hoping that he would come and see me before he left, and he never did. So
things we do as girls back there as teenagers. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think after that, that's when I realized, I'm not giving up anything for a man again. I'm not doing anything. So when it was time for me to apply to college, I actually did. And he would come back for Christmas break or whatever. So I'd still kind of see him during high school. And I had applied to Clark Atlanta University. So it's down there next to where he went in Morehouse. And I was going to potentially go. And my best friend was at this Spelman. So they're all down there in the same area, historically Black colleges. And I was going to go to Clark Atlanta so I could be with him, be with her. And then I was like, that's not really a good reason to go. So I'm going to go to University of Maryland. And so I was proud of that decision, but I was not proud of the fact that I gave up this hiking trip, because it was just the Explore Post 17 was so much fun. And I think I really do enjoy that. And I probably would enjoy it more than a hotel. And even lately, I've been thinking that maybe I would try to find a local hiking group, hiking, camping group.
Nice.
Yes, because I would love to do some of that.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe this has sparked that thought for you. Yeah.
I know, right? I know. And now that the kids are older, I don't feel that, if I were away for a weekend, it wouldn't be a big deal. When I was younger, when the kids were younger, I couldn't do that because my husband worked weekends. But now the kids are old enough that if my husband's at work, they can be by themselves during the day. He gets home. So if I'm away for a weekend, it's not a big deal doing a camping trip. So.
Do you know what, as you're talking, I'm hearing your personality as far as what you're talking about, your husband and being independent, could have been that moment shaped by that young man and what happened during that time period of that week or so. Absolutely.
Maybe.
Wow. Maybe. Subconsciously. Yes.
I guess. Yeah. So
I say that firsthand because I know this about you, but I'm just going to put in there what I went to college for originally was to get back at a teacher. I'll just show you.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Truly. And that's, that can change the trajectory of your life. I mean, a college degree can totally, and it was the wrong degree for me. And I had to go back and get another degree into the teaching field that I became. Isn't that amazing though? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think I've got maybe another 2 questions, but we might have to just wrap it up and quit because of time frame. I want to hear 2 things. I want to know about the love of your sewing and your knitting, how that came to be. I want to know that. And then I've got one last question for you before we close. How's that?
Yes. Okay. So knitting, let's talk about sewing first. I had discovered, I've always been a creative person, but I think I kind of lost that. I don't remember really doing anything creative when I was in college, honestly. Like I wasn't knitting, I wasn't sewing, I didn't do any of that. Sewing came, and I used to draw when I was younger. I used to draw like Berenstain Bears and other cool things.
My favorite books.
Oh gosh, me too. Me too. I love them. I still have them. Like we cannot.
I have a whole huge set of them. Yes.
I love the Berenstain Bears. So I used to draw them when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed that. And didn't do anything creative when I was in University of Maryland. But I had a temp job. I did a very short temp job right after I graduated, before I went to NIH. And during lunch, it was right before lunch, I heard some women talking about going to the fabric store. And I said, fabric store? What? Oh my God, can I go with you? And from there, I bought a pattern, I bought fabric, I bought a sewing machine. And every weekend, when my husband was going off to work, I would pull out my sewing machine and I would make clothes. I would figure out how to follow patterns, and I made pants and, and I still actually have one of the dresses that I made. It's a little too small for me, so I probably could take out the darts a little bit, but I loved it so much. And then when I got a little more advanced, I started making silk handbags. And I said, well, I want to start a business. I would love to be able to like have my own business and sell things, like make things and sell things.
You had this entrepreneurship way back there, didn't you?
I did. And what's really
writing and the creativity and the entrepreneurship was way back. A thought for your audience to check and look and see what you can map from way back. And if you're not where you should be right now, what is it that you can go look back and say, I should really be doing that instead of what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Yes. I'm telling you that. And I say that to people all the time. Like, if you don't know what you're passionate about, what did you want to do when you were a kid? What did you spend your time doing as a kid? That is what you should be doing now, because there was no other influences other than just purely enjoying those things. There was nobody telling you that you couldn't do it. So I was spending my weekends making silk handbags, and I even named it Shondel's Collection. Shondel is my middle name.
Oh,
yes. And can I tell you that Shondel, my mom actually got it from a shoe. So she was at the hospital. She was about to be discharged. She didn't have a middle name for me.
Oh, wow.
So she went to put her shoes on, and she looked and she's like, Shondel, I kind of like the way that sounds. So she picked my middle name from a shoe. And what's funny is that my high school boyfriend, he could never remember my middle name, but he would just call me Adidas, like Serena Adidas. So he would just say Adidas, Serena Adidas. So
Shondel sounds like the Shondells, the singing group back in the 50s and 60s to me.
That's exactly right. I think that's how you spell it. And so that's what I named my little sewing business, Shondel's Collection. And I had the little labels made up so that when I sewed it in there, it looked professional. And I started trying to find like customers who could like buy these bags. And I was selling a few of them, but those thoughts of how is this ever going to make me enough money to afford rent? I don't know how this is going to be. So it was still just a hobby. And I continued working at NIH at that time, not enjoying it so much, but wanting to be creative. And so then when I got pregnant with my oldest son, but what's really interesting, here's something that's interesting. Back before I even had kids, I actually had started a blog, and it was called Thou Art Creative. So it literally is sort of like the predecessor of Thrift Diving.
Yeah.
So I would like take my handbags and post them on there. And then when I got started with knitting, I would put knitting stuff. Actually, I think it came after, because when I got pregnant with my oldest son in 2015, 2005, I started blogging about being a mom and being pregnant and all of that. And then at that time, I was like, well, this is kind of cool, writing about like being a mom. Maybe I can do this creative blog, Thou Art Creative. So that sounds pretty cool. And so I would put my little things on there. I took painting classes, and so I would post pictures of my paintings, and I loved being creative. And then with the knitting, that came, I don't know why I started knitting, but I know there was a woman that at work that knit. And I think I was maybe inspired by her, but I was pregnant with my middle son and decided, hey, I want to make a little layette set for him. So I want to do a hat, booties, and, the little jacket, the little sweater. And it turned out so cute. And that's what started my love of knitting. But knitting is something that would come and go. So if it was like cold weather, then I'm knitting. And then it'd be like a few years and I wouldn't knit, and then cold weather would come again. But this is the first time that I'm like, it's actually warm out, but I'm actually knitting a pair of pants.
I saw that. Yes.
My pants. Oh my gosh. It's so much fun. And they actually, so far, it seems like they fit. We'll see once I get it done. But I just love being creative. I love doing. So that's why they're like, when there's people that say, well, I don't have any hobbies. I work. I'm like, I don't get that. Because I could never be bored. There's always something that I enjoy doing that if I didn't have to do work, I'd be doing one of these other hobbies. Like right now, I'm so itching to make a like a jumper. I want to sew a jumper. So I found like some cute patterns online. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been really, really wanting to make. So I'm trying to get back into sewing clothes and just having, some fun things that I do. And I think, it's when you're a creative person, sometimes you just want to focus on the creativity. You don't necessarily want to take pictures of it and log it. Like when it starts to feel like work, then you don't really want to do it as much, like if you feel like you've got a deadline, I got to get this out. People's got to see this. I just want to like do it and then take a picture and say, hey, look,
Then you could be like me, that you enjoy this so much, which we'll discuss later on in the next episode.
Yes.
So much of that, you've made so many things because it is a hobby and it's a love. And then what do you do with it? That's a teaser to everybody. Next question is the Golden Girls, your love, your favorite. Tell me very quickly, how did you get started watching the Golden Girls?
Oh my gosh, probably from my mom.
That was her show.
Golden Girls it's so good. I remember when my nephew, who I think he's did he just turn 20? No, I think he's 27. My nephew, I remember when he was just a little guy and I was about to go to school in Miami for a semester. And so the intro would come on, thank you for being a friend. And he said, look, Aunt Ree, you're Amy. You get it? You're Amy. Because he knew they lived in Miami.
Oh,
Miami. So when I think back to like, that was 27 years ago. And that's when I was in college and I was, even in high school, like watching Golden Girls. So it goes back to probably when my mom was watching it and I just loved it. But the thing that's really interesting about the Golden Girls, and I do watch the entire series from beginning to end about twice a year. What's interesting is that every time I go back and watch it, there's always something new that I hear that I forgot, or there's a situation that they're going through that I can identify with, right? Like I now see like, wow, I'm at that age where like, that's an issue that, concerns me. Or, like when my mom was sick at the hospital and seeing when Sophia was in the hospital and Dorothy was there worried, like you see yourself in the Golden Girls, in all of it, like all of their stories, there's something that's relatable no matter what age you are.
You know what I heard recently about the Golden Girls? That, they look like, to me, they look like these older women, the way they dress, the way their hair was, like they were in their late 60s, 70s, of course, the gal was the old grandma. But I heard recently that their ages truly were like 59 years old. And I'm like, I'm older than that. And I think, I sure hope I don't look like they look like older women, you know it? Yep. And isn't it amazing how we have transformed and what have you? So anyway, I wanted to get into the Golden Girls. One takeaway, then I'm going to wrap.
One takeaway from the Golden Girls?
Your life. One takeaway in your life.
Oh, one takeaway from my life.
One encouragement, one takeaway, one positive something for your audience.
Gosh, that's a hard one. Don't let anybody ever prevent you from being you. Be you. Be true to you.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, Serena, thank you so much for letting me interview you. This has been absolutely fabulous, absolutely wonderful. I hope your audience got to know you a lot better than what they had known before, and see a different side of you in a few different ways. So thank you for the honor and the privilege to be able to interview you. I'm going to say to your audience, I'm going to throw out the teaser that there will be another interview, and it will be all about the thrift diving side of things of her life. So thanks everybody for listening. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Serena.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. I really enjoyed this episode because I feel like you know me a little bit more than you did before you started listening to part 2, right? And if you remember back during the beginning of this year, one of my goals, it wasn't even a resolution, it was more so a keyword. It was like a goal of how I wanted to live my year. And those keywords were connection, flow, and simplicity. And I think that we just hit upon my first keyword in this series, connection, because I feel more connected to you now that I've shared this information. I mean, some of the stuff that I told you in these past 2 episodes was very personal information, but I felt like I wanted you to know me and I wanted to have that connection with you. And it's amazing that when you start to open yourself up to people, how connected you feel to one another. You know, this is a conversation that I have with my husband and actually other people, but more so with my husband often. He's someone that doesn't believe that you should share anything about yourself with anybody. Like, he literally believes that. And this is why he and I are so different when it comes to how we interact with people, because he believes that you should keep everything to yourself. Nobody needs to know anything about you. They don't need to know your goals, your dreams, your bucket list, your fears, because he thinks that that's information that they can just use against you. And I feel the opposite. I feel that when you open yourself up to share parts of yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your goals, it connects you with other people. That's what makes us human. You know, we're not robots. We're not, creatures that hibernate in the dark we're not bears. Then again, I guess bears are probably sociable creatures too, in some way. But I feel that we are creatures that are supposed to be connected to other people. And the way that we connect with other people is through our words, our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions. This is what makes us connected as humans. And this, I think, me doing this podcast with Laura is how I'm connecting with you. This is one of my goals for 2023, connection, flow, and simplicity. And I think this episode allowed me to connect with you. So thank you, Laura, for allowing me to do this episode and share things that I probably never would have even have shared. And if I did share some of it, like you said, it was all scattered throughout these episodes, but we've got 2 good episodes back to back where you can get to know me a little bit more and know exactly where I'm coming from. And the next episode, well, maybe not the next one, but coming up soon, you're going to hear more about thrift diving. Laura's going to ask me, how did thrift diving get started? What was my first project? How did I even learn how to use power tools? What influenced me in order to move in this direction of being a creative person? So we're going to talk about all those things. So you have to come back because we want to further connect with you. And don't worry, we have hopefully more interviews coming up. I've put out a few emails for some really interesting interviews that I'm hoping come our way. But you got to come back and listen. And I'm so thankful again that you show up here every single week to listen. You may not reach out to me. I may not know who you are, but I know that you're there. And it means so much to me that you show up every single week. So thank you. And thanks again, Laura. So I'll see you next episode.
Diving. Find it ugly, make it pretty. Paint the power tools, alright. Saving money with those thrift store vibes.